All right, let's dive deep into how AI is already shaking up warfare. Forget those killer robot headlines. We're going way beyond that today.
Definitely. It's a much bigger story.
We're talking about the real game changer. How AI is impacting the battles being fought right now, even without firing a single shot.
Right. And to get into all that, we've got two sources for this deep dive. AI is changing war, just not with killer robots.
Oh, catchy title.
And oh, AI war has just begun.
Okay, so we're jumping right into the action with that one.
Yeah. And a question to get us started, something to think about as we go through this. What if having the smartest AI, the one that can analyze all that data and tell commanders what to do, what if that becomes more important than having the most advanced tanks or missiles?
Whoa, like brains over brawn on a whole new level.
Exactly. And that's the kind of stuff we're exploring today. But to really grasp it, we need to start with this idea of the kill chain.
Okay, break that down for me. And for anyone listening who, might not be fluent in military jargon.
Sure. So the kill chain is basically a 5-step process.
Yeah.
You find the enemy, you figure out exactly where they are, you lock onto them as a target, you actually attack, and then you see how effective it was.
All right, pretty straightforward. Find, fix, target, engage, assess. Got it.
Yep. And here's the mind-blowing part. AI is already making a huge impact on every single one of those steps.
Wait, so it's not just about, AI pulling the trigger, it's about everything leading up to that point, too.
Exactly. Imagine AI sifting through tons of satellite images and drone footage, way faster than any human could, picking out those targets.
So like an army of robot scouts working nonstop.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
And our sources say this is happening right now, and AI is often even better at finding stuff than human analysts.
Whoa, okay. But then what happens to human intelligence if AI is getting that good? Do we risk becoming too reliant on machines?
It's a valid concern for sure, and it goes way beyond just images. Think about AI pulling in information from, everywhere. Military sensors, social media posts, people talking online,
Oh, wow, I didn't think of that.
even financial transactions, money moving around, and putting it all together to create this constantly updating picture of what's happening, connecting the dots.
So it's like this AI mastermind seeing the whole battlefield in a way humans just can't.
You got it. And then AI steps it up, becomes like a strategist. It analyzes all that data and starts giving advice to the commanders. Like, hey, here are the best targets. Here's how you should use your troops. Maybe even suggesting attack plans.
Whoa, so AI is basically whispering in the commander's ear, here's your best move. Isn't that a lot of responsibility to give to a machine?
Huge responsibility.
Jai.
And that brings us to some real-world stuff that's already happening. One of our sources talks about how Israel is using AI in Gaza.
Okay, yeah, I've heard about this.
They're using it to, get this, create lists of targets based on what the AI figures out from all that data. So think about it. AI is helping decide who gets targeted.
That is pretty unsettling. It makes you question how much control we're really okay with giving these systems. Are there other examples of this happening, in actual wars going on right now?
Absolutely. The conflict in Ukraine, it's become like a testing ground for all this advanced military AI.
Yeah, I've seen the headlines about those drones.
Right. Both sides are using AI-powered stuff,
Yeah.
autonomous drones included. So we're seeing it play out right in front of us, which is scary, but also gives us a lot to learn from.
It definitely makes it real, that's for sure. Okay, so what about the U.S.? Where do they fit into this whole AI arms race?
Oh, they're all in, big time. Our sources talk about this thing called Project Convergence.
Yeah.
It's basically the U.S. military trying to create this giant AI brain that's in charge of everything.
An AI brain, for the whole military.
Yeah, it's supposed to take in information from all their sensors and create this super clear, unified view of what's happening.
Sounds incredibly advanced, but also a little creepy. Are we moving away from soldiers on the ground and toward this world where software is making all the calls?
And that's a key point that comes up in both sources.
Mm-hmm.
The real advantage in future wars, it might not be about having the most tanks or planes, but about having the smartest software.
So less about the hardware, more about the software behind it all, like the algorithms calling the shots.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting, because we're talking about a world where tech companies, those big names, like Palantir, Amazon, even Microsoft, they're all getting involved in developing military AI.
Wow. So the line between Silicon Valley and the Pentagon is getting kind of blurry.
Yeah, it's all blending together. And that leads us to this idea of algorithmic warfare, which both sources mention. Basically, the idea that software and being able to analyze data, that's what's going to decide who wins.
Okay, but what does that actually look like? Algorithmic warfare, I mean. Give me an example.
Well, imagine this. AI that can analyze, enemy propaganda, and automatically create counter messages to fight back.
Oh, wow. Fighting fire, but with algorithms.
Or AI that predicts the enemy's next move by looking at all their past actions. You could outmaneuver them before they even make a move.
That's incredible, but also kind of scary. It feels like we're handing over a ton of power to these algorithms.
It is a lot to think about. Yeah. But before we, spiral into some dystopian sci-fi movie, our second source throws in this really interesting twist with the story of this Chinese startup called DeepSeek.
DeepSeek. Haven't heard of them.
They kind of came out of nowhere,
Mm.
and they managed to create an AI model that's as good as, if not better than, the ones those giant tech companies made.
Seriously, how'd they do that? Didn't those companies spend billions on this stuff?
They did, but DeepSeek did it for less than $6 million.
Right.
It was a huge shock to the industry. Like companies like NVIDIA, Microsoft, even Samsung, their stock values dropped because of this.
So this little startup just outsmarted the giants.
Basically, they focused on writing really efficient code instead of just relying on having the most expensive computers. They used this specific type of AI model called a transformer model that's really good at understanding language.
This DeepSeek thing, it really highlights how fast things are changing in the AI world, like
Hmm?
who knows what other innovations are out there just waiting to be discovered. But it also makes you wonder if they can do it, what's stopping someone else, maybe someone with bad intentions from doing the same thing?
That's the big question, right? DeepSeek's story kind of forces us to face this new reality. Maybe AI tech is a lot easier to get your hands on than we thought.
And that means it could end up with smaller groups, even individuals, maybe even people who wouldn't use it for good.
Right. And it changes the whole game in terms of who has this power and what they can do with it. It's not just governments and big corporations anymore.
Okay, so let's recap for a second. We've got AI changing the whole kill chain, this idea of algorithmic warfare, and now the possibility of AI becoming way more accessible than we thought.
Yep. That about sums it up.
It feels like we're at this turning point, and the decisions we make now, they're going to have huge consequences. Not just for how wars are fought, but for, humanity in general.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And it brings us to something we really need to talk more about, the ethics of all this.
Mhm.
We can't keep talking about these advancements without addressing the potential dangers, you know? We need to figure out how to develop and use AI responsibly.
All right, let's dive into all that right after the break. Stick with us, folks. This conversation is far from over.
Welcome back. So before the break, we were getting into how accessible AI is becoming, with stories like DeepSeek, that Chinese startup that kind of shocked everyone.
It definitely makes you think.
It's exciting to see innovation like that, but then you start thinking, what if this tech falls into the wrong hands?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a whole other level of scary.
It really is. It's like that double-edged sword thing.
Yeah.
On the one hand, wider access to AI could be revolutionary, right?
Mhm.
Medicine, education, maybe even helping us fight climate change, all that good stuff.
Oh, really? But
Then you've got the flip side, right?
the dark side.
What if it empowers the people who want to cause harm? Exactly. So, what can we even do about that? Can we actually control the spread of this technology? Especially when it comes to, military stuff.
It's a tough one. There's no easy answer. Some experts are saying we need international agreements like global rules to prevent this AI arms race from getting out of control.
Makes sense. But wouldn't that be, almost impossible to enforce?
Yeah, it's a huge challenge, especially with technology moving so fast. It's like we're always trying to catch up, trying to make rules for a game that keeps changing right in front of us.
It's like trying to hit a moving target, right? And even if we manage to get some rules in place, there's still the human factor to think about. I mean, we already talked about how AI can be biased, how it can make mistakes. And when we're talking about war, those mistakes, well, they can have devastating consequences.
No doubt. And that's why, along with regulations and countries working together, we have to focus on building AI systems that are more transparent, like systems we can actually understand.
Transparent, you mean like giving AI a conscience or something?
Not quite a conscience, but we need to be able to see how it's making decisions, right? A lot of AI right now, it's like a black box. We put in data, we get results, but we don't always know how it got there.
It's like having this brilliant general who can plan amazing battles but can't explain their strategy, right?
Right. So researchers are working on AI that can show its work, so to speak. Give us more insight into how it's thinking.
Oh, okay. So we could at least see the logic, check for any weird biases
Mhm.
before, acting on those recommendations.
Exactly. But even then, humans still have to be able to understand that logic, to question it, to make sure it makes sense.
Which is why education is so important, right? Like,
Yeah.
we need to make sure everyone involved in this, military folks, politicians, even the people developing AI, they all need the training to navigate this whole new world.
Big time. It's not just about learning to code or use AI. It's about teaching people to think critically about AI, understand the limitations, recognize those biases we talked about, and make ethical decisions.
It's like a whole new kind of military training, right? One that goes beyond just tactics and strategies.
It is, and it made me think about that argument from one of our sources, Shashank Joshi. He's the defense editor at The Economist.
Oh, yeah, I remember that article.
He was saying the real worry isn't about handing over complete control to machines. It's about making sure we, humans, understand these AI systems and can supervise them.
So we can't just blindly trust AI to make life or death decisions.
Right. We need to stay in the loop, know how it's working, and be able to overrule it if we have to.
So it's all about balance, isn't it? Using the power of AI, but making sure humans stay in control, that we're the ones ultimately responsible.
Exactly. And getting that balance right, it's going to take all of us. Governments, tech companies, the scientists doing the research, even the public. We need to have open and honest conversations about AI. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Totally. And regulations that make sure AI is developed responsibly. And then, like you said, education and training so people can make informed decisions.
All of that.
Hmm.
And I think it's super important to remember, this isn't just a military thing. AI is changing everything, right? Healthcare, transportation, how we entertain ourselves.
Hmm.
We got to make sure these changes are good for us, not harmful.
I agree 100%. It's a societal issue, a global one, and we all need to work together to make sure AI is used ethically. We can't just sit back and let the algorithms run the show. We have to be involved. We have to stay informed.
So true. Okay, this has been super insightful, but I'm wondering, how do you think AI will actually change the nature of war itself? I mean,
Yeah.
we've talked about this kill chain, algorithmic warfare, software, and data becoming more important. But is it possible that future wars, like maybe they won't even be fought on physical battlefields anymore?
That's a great question, and it's one that a lot of people are debating right now. I mean, we're already seeing a shift towards cyber warfare and information warfare, right?
Yeah. And that's what's happening all the time now. Think about attacks on power grids and communications networks, trying to cripple a country without even setting foot on their soil. And then there's disinformation, propaganda, all this stuff designed to manipulate people's opinions.
So it's like the battle's moved online. Instead of fighting over land, we're fighting over data narratives, like winning over people's hearts and minds.
Exactly. And guess what? AI is going to be a major weapon in this new kind of war. It can create these super realistic Jeep fakes, spread propaganda in an instant, even target individuals with messages that are like custom made to influence them.
That is seriously scary stuff. Like, the next war zone could be as close as my phone or my social media feed.
It could be. And the weapons, well, they're information, algorithms, and people's attention spans. It's a constant battle, 247, 365, and the stakes are higher than ever.
This is mind-blowing stuff. We've gone from worrying about robots with guns to like this whole world of algorithmic warfare, manipulation, and the truth itself becoming like a casualty. It's changing so fast, and it's challenging everything we thought we knew about war, about ethics, even about what it means to be human in this crazy, interconnected world.
You're right, it is a lot. But even with all that, I think there's still reason to be hopeful.
Mm.
I mean, humans, we're pretty good at adapting, coming up with new ideas, finding solutions to really tough problems. We faced big threats before, and we always figure things out.
I like that, the optimism. It's easy to get caught up in all the scary what-ifs. But we do have the power to shape the future, to make sure AI is used for good.
Totally. And that brings us to the last part of our deep dive. Let's shift gears and talk about what we can do to navigate all this, to make sure AI benefits us, not harms us.
Welcome back to the show. Before the break, we were talking about how the battleground is shifting, from real-world places to online, the digital space.
It's a big change for sure.
Yeah, it kind of freaks me out, honestly.
I get it. But think about it this way. Throughout history, warfare has always evolved alongside technology, right? Like every time there's a new invention, it changes the way we fight wars.
Yeah, that's true. Like gunpowder, for example, or airplanes.
Exactly. Each new technology forces us to adapt, to come up with new strategies, new ways to defend ourselves. AI, it's just the next step in that evolution.
That's a good way to look at it. It helps put things in perspective. So if this digital warfare is the new reality, what can we do to prepare for it? What are the tools we need to fight this different kind of fight?
Well, the first thing is simple but crucial. Cybersecurity. We've got to protect our important systems, power grids, communications, finances, all that stuff.
Yeah, like imagine if someone used AI to shut down the power grid or mess with our internet.
Total chaos, right?
Yeah.
It shows just how vulnerable we are in this interconnected world.
So cybersecurity, that's a big one. What else?
Information defenses. We need to get better at recognizing fake news, propaganda, all that. Invest in media literacy, critical thinking skills, fact-checking.
So it's not just about building better software to protect our computers, it's about teaching people how to think critically about the stuff they're seeing online.
Exactly. When information itself becomes a weapon, critical thinking is our best defense.
We got to be able to spot those lies, recognize when someone's trying to manipulate us, and be wary of anything that just confirms what we already believe.
Spot on. It's like we need to train our minds to be as quick and adaptable as the AI systems we're dealing with.
Like we need to become digital warriors ourselves.
I like that. And just like any warrior, we got to stay in training, keep learning, be ready for new challenges, new threats. Because the online world, it's always changing.
It can feel overwhelming, honestly, but it's also kind of empowering.
Yeah.
Knowing that we have a role to play in all this, we're not just helpless victims. We can actually do something.
Absolutely. And that brings me to another important point. Holding those big tech companies accountable. They've got so much power, they need to be responsible for how their platforms are used, how their algorithms are spreading disinformation and manipulating people.
Yeah, it's easy to feel powerless against those giants, but we do have a voice, right?
We do. We can demand more transparency, push for stronger regulations, support companies that are trying to do the right thing.
Our choices matter, right? Like where we spend our money, how we use social media, what we choose to read and believe. It all adds up. We can't let the algorithms decide everything for us.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the risks of AI, but I want to end on a more positive note. I'm curious, are there ways that AI could actually help create a more peaceful world? Like, can it be used for good in international relations, conflict resolution, all that?
I like where you're going with this. Give me some hope here.
Well, think about it. What if we had AI that could analyze tons of data and spot the early warning signs of a conflict before it even starts?
Oh, that would be amazing.
Or AI that could help different sides in a dispute communicate better, maybe even find some common ground.
So, like AI as a mediator, helping people de-escalate things and work toward a solution.
Exactly. Or AI could be used to monitor peace agreements, track weapons and resources, make sure everyone's following the rules.
I like it. AI as a peacekeeper. It's a good reminder that we have choices to make. We can shape the future of this technology and steer it towards something positive.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Mm-hmm.
The future of AI, just like the future of warfare, it's not set in stone. It's up to us to decide what kind of world we want to live in.
That's a great note to end on. This has been a fascinating deep dive, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share your insights.
My pleasure. It's been a great conversation.
And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this journey. We've covered a lot, from how AI is changing the way wars are fought to how we can prepare for this new world. It's a lot to process, but remember, the conversation doesn't end here. Keep asking questions, stay informed, and be part of shaping the future.
Well said. And don't forget to check out the show notes for links to the sources we talked about today.
Until next time, keep diving deep.